I'm Brian Knockwood. Wajidayik, Wabanagik. I'm a drum maker. I can feel your spirit here with me. We travel around all over the Maritimes, all over Wabanagi territory, making drums. Yes, I don't know, I'll never be lonely. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. I've been making drums probably for about 20 years, but I've been doing hand drum making workshops for about the last 12 years. I didn't really know what a drum was until I was 16 years old. We didn't have this. We didn't have any of this when I was young. Like I said, we're just so close to the residential school. We were affected so big time from our language, our culture, our traditions. When I first started singing in 1991, I was introduced to the drum by a gentleman from Medibanagiek. And then over the years, I learned from many different teachers. When I first started, I worked over at the Eagle's Nest Recovery House. I was a prevention counselor there. And they said, have you ever done a workshop before? I was like, no, I haven't. But I can try, I can give it a shot. I remember the first group that we did it with, like even though they struggled putting it together, and just the pride you seen in their eyes, the smiles on their faces and in their hearts, like they were just so proud of that drum. And then when they graduated from the treatment center and leaving with that drum, it was just, they were just so proud of it, proud of themselves. And because what the drum represents is the heartbeat of Mother Earth, and there's so much medicine and healing in that drum, and just for them to leave that, and to start their road to recovery and having that drum in their hand and that connection with Mother Earth, it just was so good to see that. And after a few years, it started getting pretty popular. That they said, well, why don't you do workshops for people in your community? I'm like, yeah, okay. Word got out probably about 8 years ago that, hey, there's these guys from Indian Brook that can doing hand drum making workshops, and probably over the last, I say even 5 years, we've probably done about 120 workshops. Being able to pass on the knowledge and the tradition to our kids, seeing the smiles on their faces, that's the biggest thing. It's like they're so happy. If they can go on to pass these teachings on to their grandchildren, that would mean so much more. When you're making anything, he goes, when you're doing anything for your hands, you need to be in a good place. That you need to smudge before you do it, and you need to, because when you're doing anything, that you'll transfer any of that energy that you have. You'll put it into it. So you want to make sure that your mind, body, and spirit is in a good place. When you make a drum, you always have to keep in mind, the deer gave up its life. It gave up its life for a purpose. We're always taught to use every part of the animal that we can, that don't let anything go to waste. And so we always have to keep in mind the spirit of the animal when they're making a drum. Like that one simple teaching that I learned, if you take care of the drum will take care of you. That's the number one teaching right there. I'm so grateful for the drum. I can honestly say probably about 90 to 95% of my friendships come from that drum, because of that drum.